Welcome into a new episode of Behind the Paw. My name is Matt Ambrose, and we are now sitting down with head football coach DeLane Fitzgerald. And Coach, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm not doing too bad, I got to admit. Want to take a look kind of at your journey here to Frostburg State, and as you know, your football days started back at Potomac State, James Madison University, and I want to hand you some photos here of a younger-looking DeLane Fitzgerald, number 36 in purple and gold there. When you look at those photos, what comes to mind? What do you remember from your playing days?
How much I love to play. This makes you smile. My football days started at 7 years old for the Amherst Wolverines, and then progressed into Nelson County High School, and then to Potomac State Junior College, and then to James Madison. First thing I think of when I look at that picture is I'm too high on the block. I don't have my knees bent. I don't have proper leverage. So I'm guessing that was a kickoff return. And then this picture of us running out of the tunnel at James Madison. It's funny because you have my two roommates.
Oh, yeah?
So, yeah, it's me and my two roommates running out of the tunnel. So, hey, good times, good football program.
Looking at the people you played with, one that stuck out is the backup quarterback on that team was John DeFilippo, who people know nowadays or remember nowadays as the quarterback's coach for the Philadelphia Eagles when they won Super Bowl 52 with Nick Foles a couple of years ago. But getting back to you, and when you finished up at James Madison in 1999, did you know immediately, or did you know while you were playing that you wanted to get into coaching, or what kind of led to that decision to go the coaching route?
You brought Flip up, so we got to talk about.
Go ahead.
Yeah, John DeFilippo was a teammate of mine at James Madison. A really good teammate, a good football coach, a better person. So great man. And John's done a nice job as the offensive coordinator for the Cleveland Browns and Minnesota Vikings and Jacksonville Jaguars. He's now the quarterback's coach for the Chicago Bears.
Yes.
And Mitchell Trubisky played pretty well last week, so he's doing a nice job there so far. But a good one. Also, probably the biggest memory I have in college is I played fullback at James Madison, and the two tailbacks that we had both played in the NFL. So I always talk to our players here about practicing really well, and I tell them I never had a choice. The guys playing behind me were so much more talented than I was. I had to go full speed on every play just to try to keep up.
When you graduated from James Madison, when was it then that you knew you wanted to get into coaching? What kind of led to that? Did you know while you were playing that, okay, playing football might not work out, but maybe there's an avenue for me in coaching? What kind of led to that?
I announced to my family and friends when I was in 7th grade that I was going to be a football coach, and that's what I was going to do with my life's work. It was about 7th grade when I realized that my talent wasn't going to be good enough to get paid for playing football. So I had to figure out how to stay in the game as an adult and be successful that way. But in 7th grade, but all the way through high school, I always thought that I would major in PE in college, and then I would go into high school coaching. So to tell you the truth, I thought I'd be a high school coach in Virginia or North Carolina for 20 years and win a bunch of state titles and a bunch of district and conference titles, and that's kind of the way my story would go. I walked out on the field in college one day, and I looked around and I said, these guys are getting paid, and they don't have to teach. I think that's the route I'm going to go. So got into college coaching, and it's been a really, really fun ride. A lot of ups and downs, a lot of highs, a lot of lows, but it's been a fun ride, and wouldn't trade it for the world.
I want to kind of go through where you've been, the stops that you've been to, and the first one was a place called Bridgeton Academy up in Maine. Soon after you graduated college, about an hour northwest of Portland, and I looked it up 2 hours from where I live in New Hampshire as well, so my neck of the woods a little bit. What do you recall from those days, your first coaching gig up there?
I'll back up just a little bit. My first coaching stop was Glenville State College,
okay,
which are now our rivals in the Mountain East, but my first stop was Glenville State, and Paul Schaffner hired me there when he was the head coach, so I was there for one spring. As an intern wide receivers coach there, and enjoyed my time there. 3.5, 4 months that I was there, and Bridgeton Academy called and offered me a full-time job, which doesn't happen to 23-year-olds that had just graduated college. And I went to Bridgeton Academy and was a defensive coordinator there for 2 seasons. All male, all postgraduate school, and what seemed to me at the time as a 23-year-old, an all-male town. So it was rough as far as that side of things. Really enjoyed the young men that were there, and I could relate to them because they were there trying to do something better athletically than they had done in high school. They were there trying to improve their GPA and SAT scores, and being a junior college guy, I could relate to those young men. I really enjoyed my New England experience, and I think all Southerners should spend a little time in New England because they'll appreciate a lot of things: the ice fishing, the snowmobiling, the ice hockey rinks. Those things that you don't see.
You get some good fall foliage too up there.
The foliage is beautiful.
Yes.
The only problem is the foliage is at the end of August instead of when it's supposed to be
That's
in the
true.
middle of October.
That's true, especially that part of Maine.
Yeah. Hey, it's snowstorms of 30-some inches at a time. Really impressive when it would snow there 16, 18 inches on a Sunday.
Yep.
And everybody go to school on Monday. Just like nothing had ever happened. School bus would come down the road with the chains on the tires and pick the kids up, and they'd go to school. Here is what I got from my 2-year experience at Bridgeton Academy. I worked for a great man who is still the head coach there, Rick Marcella, and I worked with a great man in Matt Burgess there. And here's what I will tell you they taught me was work ethic. My work ethic wasn't what it is now when I went there as a young man, but to watch a head coach and another guy who was older and established, to watch them do their daily duties and then go down and run the equipment room voluntarily, free of charge. But they would do all the equipment. They would do the taping of the players. They would hand out the equipment. They would do all the little things. And I learned a work ethic, and I learned that nothing is above me as a coach as far as doing and getting done and so on and so forth.
After your time there as defensive coordinator, you returned back to James Madison, defensive line coach, and still under the same coach that you played with, Mickey Matthews, who was there from '99 to 2013 and won a national championship with James Madison in 2004. What did you learn from Mickey Matthews, both in your playing days, playing under him, and then watching him as a head coach? You just talked about picking up some things coaching-wise from people you've coached under. What about Coach Matthews and what he instilled in you that you still carry to this day?
Yeah, Coach Matthews was really good to me. A good man, good football coach. He won a national title as a defensive coordinator at Marshall. He won a national title as a head coach at James Madison. His coaching kind of speaks for itself. I learned more things from him than we can sit here and talk about today, but I'll give you the biggest. I learned that as a head coach, the biggest thing you better be coaching is tone and tempo. He would control the tone and tempo of the football program as a head coach, and I learned that from him, and I thought that was always really important. And then here's the thing, and his greatness was based around this, and I'm not as good at it as he was, but he would see a film on a young man, and he would be able to tell you, like in 5 minutes, exactly who that young man was going to be as a football player 5 years later, and he would be almost 100% correct. But we would, when I was there as a player and as a coach, we'd watch film. It'd be a quarterback out of Pennsylvania. He did this several times. It'd be a quarterback out of Pennsylvania, and the kid would be 6'4", 205 pounds, and he would say, big, broad shoulders. He'd say in 4 or 5 years, he's going to be a really good defensive end or 3 technique on the defensive line. Now, that quarterback from Pennsylvania and his parents didn't want to hear that. Well, that kid ends up winning, 2 of them end up winning the national title. One was a high school running back, one's a high school quarterback, playing 3 technique for James Madison, 3-4 years after they got there. We were there watching film one time, and we had an assistant coach, Eddie Davis, good man. Eddie Davis put in a film of these 2 kids from Bach Tech in the city of Philadelphia, and it was a newsreel off of the 11 p.m., 11:30 news, and it showed like 6 clips. Well, their high school didn't have any film. They didn't do any film at that high school, and it was a bad high school, bad football program. Coach Matthews watched 6 plays of those 2 young men and said they're going to be great. Both of them are going to be college defensive backs, and they're going to be great players. Well, when they win the national title in 2004, one kid's starting at corner and the other kid's starting at safety. Well, James Madison was their only scholarship offers because they didn't have any film. But he could watch a player on film and see exactly who they were. He'd watch a really good high school player on film and be like, not going to be very good in college. And then 4 years later, just out of curiosity, you'd look it up and he'd be right. Mickey Matthews' ability to evaluate film and evaluate kids was, in my career, have been second to none.
It's interesting you bring that up, the eye for talent, the eye for picking kids out on film and seeing how they'll be able to develop in their college career? Because in your time, both here at Frostburg State and then before here at Southern Virginia University, you took on some rebuilding projects. Southern Virginia University, the football program, had gone through some tough times, and in your time there as a coordinator and then eventually a few years as head coach, you led them to 2 school records in wins during your time there. Now at Frostburg, 39 wins since the start of the 2016 season, and built that team into a power at the Division III level and then a seamless transition into Division II. And I know talking to you last year, you don't like to talk about the jump from D3 to D2, but you did something similar too. Southern Virginia University went from NAIA up to Division III, another pretty seamless transition. What is it about what you bring into a program, your eye for talent, your coaching tactics, whatever it may be, that allows you to take a program from any hardships, any struggles they're going to, and lead them to higher and better results?
Yeah, it's not me. It's the assistant coaches and it's the players. Everywhere I've been has been a rebuild. When we were at the spring I spent at Glenville State, Paul Schaffner was rebuilding that program. 2 years later, he wins conference title there. I go to Bridgeton. Bridgeton was established, and Rick Marcello said, I think he's been there 30 seasons. He's probably had 25 winning seasons, 24, 25 out of 30. That wasn't a rebuild, but I learned a work ethic there. I leave there and go back to James Madison. They were coming off of a 2-9 season. Well, 3 seasons later, they win the national title. They go 2-9, 5-6, 6-6 national title. So built it there, and I got to watch Mickey Matthews build a program, and that was great, and I learned some things. Left there and took the job at UT Martin, and I was running backs, tight ends coach, special teams coordinator at UT Martin. But they hadn't had a winning season since 1988 when we got there in 2003, and then 4 seasons later, they went 9-1, 10-1. Made the playoffs and had a chance to make a run in the playoffs. So I watched that rebuild. I took the offensive coordinator's job at Bethel University in Tennessee. They hadn't had a winning season since 1933. When we were there in 2005, there was one person still alive that had played on a winning team at Bethel, and it just happened he lived across the street. Great story. He would come to the ball games and he would wear his Letterman sweater that had holes all in it, but because it was from 1933. And it was 2005, but anyway, not nice gentleman. But they hadn't had a winning season, and I watched Dino Calculus and that staff and those players go from not ever having a winning season to we won the conference that year at 7-4, won the division, and then Dino and them went on to have 2 or 3 straight 10-win seasons. So I watched the rebuild there. When I got to Southern Virginia, I knew that it was going to take a great coaching staff, which we were able to put together a great coaching staff there, but I also knew we were going to have players there. The difference in the success and the non-success that we had at Southern Virginia didn't have anything to do with me. It was when we had really good staffs, offensive coordinator was good, defensive coordinator was good, we had good assistant coach, position coaches, and then we had like-minded players there. We were successful. We knew going into that 2000, we had won 5 games in 2012. We had a 500 season in 12. We knew coming into 2013 that we were going to be really good. We had 42 kids on the team that thought and acted and just played football the same way our coaching staff thought that it should be played. So the term I would use is like-minded. When we had like-minded players at Southern Virginia that all thought alike, we were really, really successful. Coming here, I'll finish up with coming here. My February 4th, 2014, I've said it a whole lot. I walked into the room for my introduction, and the athletic director, Troy Dell, who's still the current athletic director here, introduces me to the players, and I got to speak for 10 or 15 minutes. But there were 141 young men in there, and there were a lot of guys slouched in their seats. That there were a lot of guys with bad body language, bad looks on their faces. They hadn't had any success in football. We knew that we had to change things.
As I'm standing here looking at you, there's some guys here in the room that didn't finish the season last year. There's some guys in the room that didn't play last year. There's some guys in the room that had 50, 60, 100 tackles last year. There's some guys in the room that had all the catches and had all the carries and made all the throws last year. I want you guys to understand as you're sitting here looking at me, okay? You all have a clean slate.
Matt, I will tell you this, that a successful football program and a successful company are doing 20 to 22 things, the important things, really, really well. And people that are unsuccessful in the business world and unsuccessful in athletics are doing 20 to 25 things really, really poorly. When we got here, some things have been done poorly, and here's what we did. We started with the first 5 things that mattered in life and mattered in football, and we fixed them. And then we went to the next 5 things and we fixed them. When we got up around that 20 mark, all of a sudden it was year 2, we go 6 and 4, and then we can go from doing 20 things really, really well to doing 25 things really, really well. We go from being 6 and 4 to, and I'll get the records wrong, 10 and 1, 11 and 2, 10 and 1, 8 and 3.
That's
and
right.
it's what we continue to do now. But we wake up each morning and we make sure we nail those 25 things. Hey, punctuality, being on time, accountability, being there, working hard after you get there, working hard with a good attitude, controlling the things that don't take any talent, being really good at the things that don't take any talent. And we get those knocked out, and it's been our success here. Hey, mental and physical toughness. Matt, we're not always the best. The last 5 years has been a lot of Saturdays, but we're not the most athletic team. We don't have the most talent, but we are mentally and physically tough and as resilient as any group of young men you've ever seen. I heard Zach earlier this week talk about the brotherhood. Yeah, we have a brotherhood. If we're up 14, nobody's bickering and complaining on the sidelines. And if we're down 14, nobody's bickering and complaining on the sidelines. We're trying to play the next play and be really good at the next play, and we stay together. We never come unafraid. We never become afraid. We stay galvanized as a football program and as a football family, and we just keep playing. Just keep playing, and if you do that for 3 hours on Saturdays, you just play and play hard and play the next play, you're usually successful at the end of it.
And I want to, that last point you just made, like whether you're 14 up or 14 down, you're staying together. And it reminds me of a game last year at Fairmont State where you guys were down 28-9 in the early stages of the 4th quarter and came back to win that game in overtime. And it's interesting to think about a group of guys. It's very easy in that situation specifically to kind of get down on yourself and say, okay, we're down 19, there's 10 minutes left, we have no chance. But it speaks to yourself as a coach and also to the roster of guys that you've built, that they're able to stick with it, stay in the game, persevere, and find a way to pull that game out. Because it really was impressive to watch over there at Fairmont State, to watch that team pull that game out.
It's a great lesson for you guys going forward the rest of your life, that you finish every damn thing because other people won't finish it. Y'all understand me? Yes, sir. Hey, those are the ones that said we didn't have any energy. Let's get down on this. Yeah.
Another point you just talked about is very interesting. The 20 to 25 things that you're doing right or wrong. When you look at coaching, and I don't know if you knew this going into coaching or maybe you've learned it throughout the years, how much of coaching, I don't need a specific number obviously, but how much of coaching would you say really is off the field stuff? Controlling your players, making sure, like you said, punctuality, being on time, making sure you're doing the little things correctly as opposed to just working on stuff on the field, going through the playbook, making sure everyone's on the same page. How much of it is it those off the field things?
Isn't it all?
It could be.
Isn't it all? Your success in interviewing me today has everything to do with you and your assistant showing up here at 7 a.m. this morning and setting everything up. When I got here at 9 for this interview, everything was already done. It all happens before the actual game happens. Could talk to you about days on life's philosophy and those 20 and 25 things, but my first football coach at James Madison was Alex Wood. Mm-hmm. Alex Wood gave me an opportunity to play college football, and I am forever grateful. He's currently the wide receivers coach at Delaware, but I never see him on the road recruiting or see him at the AFCA convention that I don't grab him and give him a big hug and tell him thank you. Because he gave a very unathletic young man an opportunity to play Division I football, and I'm forever grateful. My first year at James Madison, he brought in, the guy was officiating ACC, SEC, Big East games at that time. He was a football official, one of the top officials. He brought him in to speak to us. And he spoke to us on the rules and regulations and stuff like that of football. But then at the end of the speech, and I wish I remember the gentleman's name because I'd write him a thank you letter, but he gave us a speech about life and how life is all decisions. And in life, you're faced with about 300 decisions per day, and you don't even realize it, that you're faced with them. But the decisions that you make today start yesterday, like what time you set your alarm for, like what you lay out to wear today, what you lay out in the decisions. And when the alarm goes off, do you hit snooze or do you get up? Do you hit off and go back to sleep? You know, what do you do there? Just all the decisions. When you walk in the cafeteria, what are your decisions on your meal for that time? When you're walking to the cafeteria, you have a decision to make. On this campus, you have a decision to make 3 different ways to get there. And just all the decisions. And he talked to us, he goes, you're not going to be 100% on those 300 decisions. He said, but if you're 75% correct on all the decisions that you make throughout the day, each day, and you don't make any major bad decisions, he goes, you're going to be successful. And I know I'm getting into a tangent and talking too much about this stuff, but the speech that he gave us at that time had a profound effect on my life, that life's about decisions. And there's always a good decision and a bad decision when you're faced with a decision. We talk with our players about that here and making really, really good decisions off the field. We don't try to control young men here. You're not going to control 17 to 23-year-old adolescent males. You're not going to. But we talk to them about making good decisions and about not making any major bad decisions.
Going back to your coaching route and how you got here, and you talked about how you've coached at a bunch of different schools, but you've also coached in a bunch of different capacities. You've coached special teams. You've coached on both sides of the ball, offense and defense. When you take that into consideration, and you've coached in all 3 phases of the game, how big is that for how you're able to perform as a head coach, being able to have that experience in all 3 phases of this game?
Yeah, it's probably my biggest attribute. It's the best thing I bring to the table. I've been an offensive coordinator for 5 or 6 years. I was a defensive coordinator for 3 or 4 years. I was a special teams coordinator for 3 years. And when you become a head coach, Matt, you get a little stale. You get a little stale on the coordinator stuff because you're doing so much paperwork.
Right. And you're dealing with young men's lives. I have 150 sons on this football program, so I am with them in a father capacity a lot of the times, and I don't get to do as much offense, defense, special teams as I'd like to. Matt, here's what it does. It allows me to talk to our coaches about what's going right and what's going wrong offensively, defensively, and special teams, and not miss a beat because I've been there and I've done it a couple of times. Obviously, right now, no fall football. We're in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, and fall sports here at Frostburg State have been pushed back to the spring. For you as a coach, in an unprecedented time like this, what challenges have presented themselves to you, and how you're able to train with your players, meet with your players? Just what goes into still being able to coach a group of, like you said, 17 to 23-year-old men and still keep them sharp for whenever you do get back on the field?
You brought up the pandemic. Our players and coaches doing symptoms check every morning, and them getting their temperature checked every morning has provided its share of challenges. COVID testing, because we're surveillance testing, so 25 to 50% of our football program is getting tested weekly. I get tested again tomorrow for the 4th time in the last month. What they figured out is they've stuck it up in there. There's no brain up in there. There's nothing to stop it. It just keeps going. But I got chosen again to go tomorrow, so I'll be tested again for the 4th time tomorrow. I have been so impressed with our student body at this university and the way that the young men and women at this university have handled this pandemic. Our administration has also been great. Our administration has been great to its employees, and they've been great to the students about trying to get this done. You asked the challenges that it's posed. Outside of the paperwork and the extra check-in and the temperature check and the COVID test, no more than any other day, no more than any other fall. Do I get sad sometimes? A little bit sad. Yeah, that other people are playing football and we're not. Yes, yeah, I do. Love football, love the game of football, and what it brings to young men's lives and the ability it has to change young men's lives, just like it changed mine. And yeah, does it make me sad that we're not getting to play? Yeah, hell yeah.
You want to get back on the field, of course, and coaching has brought you so much over the years since you've left college at James Madison. When you look at why you're in coaching and what you feel from it, what rewards you get out of coaching, what comes to mind? What is the most rewarding thing for you when it comes to coaching college football?
Yeah, I like to compete. So I'm not going to give you the whole I'm in it for the kids first. I like to compete. I am competitive. Come from a very, very competitive family. I really, really like to compete. And the us getting better each day of the week and then competing on Saturday matters to me. Now, the number one reason why I coach it is this. Seeing the light bulb come on a young man, whether it be football or educationally or in life, is absolutely my favorite. And you never know when it's going to be. I'll give you two players in back-to-back years. We had two young men come through here, and they were defensive backs and really didn't accomplish a whole lot. Academically or athletically didn't accomplish a whole lot, but they didn't do anything wrong, so we let them stick around. And then 2 years ago, Anthony Taylor comes out of nowhere as a fifth-year senior, and he's a first-team all-conference corner. We played 11 games that year, and he played great in 10 out of the 11 games. And now he's gone on to become a teacher in Montgomery County, and he's a teacher and coach in Montgomery County, and talking about getting a master's degree, and me running into Anthony 3 times since he's left here a year and a half ago have been really, really big highlights for me. But to watch young men and the light bulb come on, the young man that done it last year was Mike Bell. Mike Bell was here for 3 seasons and didn't play a whole lot, and had his share of trials and tribulations academically and off the field, but we kept him and we liked him, and I think we kept him around here for 3 years because of how much I liked the smile on his face. It just had an infectious smile. But Mike starts last year as a senior for the first time ever in his first or second team all-conference in a Division II conference, and played really, really well. He might have played well 11 out of 11 games last year. But Mike's here right now finishing his degree, something I didn't think was going to happen 4 years ago. But the first part for me is competing. The reason why I love coaching is competing. The second part is to watch the young men change their lives when the light bulb comes on and they kind of they figure out football and education and life. That's the second part for me. And then the third and final one would be this. I really love the interaction with the players. I love the brotherhood and the family atmosphere and being able to help them. I'm not their father. I'm not, and nobody at this university is. But having an opportunity to help them make a decision and make the right decision and do things that progress their lives. So I like the reunions. I like the reunions
Oh, yeah.
and seeing the guys come back and, hey, hearing about their families and hearing about what they're doing for work and all that. I really like that stuff.
Well, Coach, thank you so much for joining us here on Behind the Paw, giving us a glimpse at your journey through the coaching ranks. Really appreciate you taking the time here with us.
Matt, thank you for having me. Logan behind the camera, thanks for all you guys did today. I appreciate it.